to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. This is your host, Ben Timby, joined here by my fellow host and fellow co-founder, Ian Hawks.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And we are excited today to drop in on a short form podcast around cock size, penis size. And, for a lot of guys, this could be like a deep core wounding from an early age. I know it was for myself, being programmed by porn and seeing huge cocks and, being under this belief that very unconsciously that like the bigger the cock, the better. And that's what women want. And all the ways that can impact our sense of body dysmorphia and our ability to actually show up in the bedroom. And we're going to be talking about ways to naturally increase your size, as well as some of the tools to update some of that programming and hopefully bring a little more empowerment to any brothers tuning in. So I'd love to just start by passing off to you, Hawks. Right before we hit record, you were talking a little bit about some studies you were looking into around female pleasure and orgasm and how this might be correlated or not to our penis size.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to speak to like the elements of body dysmorphia that men and women experience and the different ways that can show up. And for men, penis size, muscular toning, these are probably the primary body dysmorphia elements that a lot of men are challenged with. And when it comes to penis size, as we're going to get into in this podcast, it's I feel it's really important to name right out of the gate one of the myths around penis size, and that's that like you were saying, bigger is always better, or not being endowed with a huge cock means that you're not going to be able to bring sufficient pleasure to your partner. And that's, I think, something that is commonly understood as like, maybe it's a myth, like, yeah, we've heard that thrown around, like, oh, size doesn't matter. And I think it's something that a lot of men might struggle to actually really believe. And so just to throw some hard data out there, the studies that I've been looking at show that on average, maybe between 18 to 25% of the time, women are reaching an orgasm through penetrative sex alone. When we bring in clitoral stimulation with that penetration, that number rises to like 50 or 60%. And then just looking at oral sex alone, which is purely clitoral stimulation, 80% of the time. So that's just like, let's just, take a moment to let that land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're only relying on your cock, you have a far lower chance of actually bringing a partner to an orgasm. And, one of the things that I was saying earlier, Ben, is like, so we want to really empower men in this space and the work that we do in these podcasts and with this topic especially. And so just letting that land, like, regardless of your penis size, you have all the tools necessary to bring your partner to a reliable orgasm, period. And when we learn to incorporate these other forms of stimulation, whether it's using a sex position like coital alignment technique that's going to allow penetration and clitoral stimulation at the same time, or if we become masters of oral sex, which, like, shout out Men's Sexual Mastery, we have a mini course on oral mastery, because this is really important stuff regardless of our penis size. Even if we were endowed with a huge cock, like, learning how to masterfully use our tongue and our hands is really important, and really fun and really pleasurable for the woman. So yeah, we'll start with that. Just like right out of the gate, here's definitive proof that size actually, like, really doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be, it's not the crux point that we've been led to believe it is.
Yeah, and actually it's been interesting for me to hear from women who've been with men with huge cocks. Like that can actually be just as much of a struggle, contrary to what you may see in porn, with these porn stars that are really stretched open. Many women, I know women who've broken up with guys because their cock was too big. It was too uncomfortable to have sex. So I do feel like mentioning that as well out of the gate, just like there are these extreme ends of the spectrum. And as Hawk said, I love this. Like your cock size has nothing to do with your ability to make love and to bring your partner into orgasm and to have a deeply fulfilling sex life. There's just different dynamics depending on what you're working with. And there's the old saying, it's not the size, it's what you do with it. We've all heard that before, and that's exactly what we're speaking to and what we're going to get into today. So, yeah, definitely echoing all of that. I just wanted to give just a quick backstory before we get into some of the natural methods to, increase the length and girth of your penis, which, yeah, we'll be getting into some of the nuts and bolts. But before we do, I just wanted to share, for me, I didn't realize, like, I first was exposed to porn at 10 years old and had a prepubescent little boner, and just I remember pulling out a tape measure and measuring my dick, and it was I don't know, like 2.5 inches hard or something, 3 inches hard, like. And I didn't hit puberty. I was addicted to porn and ejaculating all the time and had a really negative body image. Like that programming at such a young age, it made me think that women would never want me, that I was so unworthy. And yeah, I remember in like early high school, I didn't even hit puberty till like 16, and I still had this 3 inch dick. And I remember just how much that sabotaged every interaction I had with a woman. Like if she really knew what was in my pants, like from what I've seen on porn, she would never want me. And this was so deep and carried with me even into my 20s. And so much of the work in this for me, and of course my dick did get a little larger, like as I went into puberty, it, started to grow, but I've never had, I think the average penis size is around 6 inches or so. And I'd say, just to put it all out there, like I'm just around that. And coming into these practices and learning how to actually let go of my own view or perception of my cock, and not think that there's any scarcity in my size, and actually relax and bring in all these practices that we're doing as well. Like the felt sense of my cock has completely transformed. Like I feel like I have this massive cock and I wield it as if it's just this massive thing. Like it's left me feeling like I almost forgot that like cock size was even a thing, because it literally does have nothing to do with it. So, like I have noticed about a half inch to an inch of increased length and a definitely more increased girth, like as I've released tension in my pelvic floor and used some of the methods that we're going to talk about in this podcast. So I just wanted to start with just a little backstory on my end of how I went from being someone who was so constricted and so caught up in this narrative to someone who completely, I almost forgot about it when we were thinking of some topics we could bring into the podcast, and this came up. I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So just know that it can be easy actually to overcome this stuff, and you can have epic fulfilling sex even with a small penis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Ben, for sharing that. Some personal stuff, and I think it's important to put these things out there and just be like, hey, look, this is where I was at. These were the beliefs I had, and now I'm here. And like that's a transition, that's a transformation that anyone can make. And when we learn to let go of our own limiting self beliefs and pair that with practices and new ways of being that actually bring into our reality a new belief and uh, a new way of being that's going to over time just rewrite that old programming like you've experienced, where you're like, now I'm like, I forget that was even a thing that I lived with, because this new program that's running is so just the opposite of that. And one thing that was coming up for me, if we keep saying like size doesn't matter, there are some anatomical aspects that I feel like are worth naming. And so let's just talk about female anatomy for a minute here. And I spoke to at the beginning the clitoral body being the primary organ of female sexual pleasure. So if anyone's not familiar, the clitoris, as most people I think kind of understand it, or most men at least, think about the clit as the clitoral head, the little man in the canoe, the button, whatever you want to call it, the bean. It's like that's just one tiny piece of the clit. That's like the equivalent of the head of our penis. The clitoral head is the one part of the clit that protrudes outside of the body, particularly when aroused. And the bigger body of the clit actually extends inside the female body, and there's a shaft and then some legs or cura and bulbs that come down from that. So this whole clitoral body is much bigger than just the head, but all of that is still within the first like 2 inches of the female body. So this primary organ of female pleasure, the clitoris, can all be accessed within the first couple inches. And most of that is better accessed externally using our hands or our tongue or the pubic bone in the coital alignment technique. Or there's many other ways to bring stimulation there. But just to name that anatomically, and the G spot that many people are likely familiar with, which is inside the vaginal canal, again just a couple inches on the anterior side, the top side. That's the G spot is largely believed to still be an extension of the clitoral body. It's the bulbs and the shafts of the bulbs and the legs of the clit that extend around the vaginal canal, and then there's the urethral sponge, and all of that to say that we're still, even with a G-spot orgasm, it's still related to the clitoral body, and we can reach that with just the first two joints of our fingers. So even if you have what might be considered a micro penis, you likely still have enough there to work with for internal stimulation to stimulate that G spot. And then the final aspect of female pleasure and orgasm centers in terms of like furthest from the entry point is the cervix. And the cervix is it's a moving target. It actually will ascend or descend based on levels of arousal. We could think about it as the female body is constantly responding to the environment. I mean, our bodies are all responding to the environment, but the female body is going to adapt to whatever penis it's working with, whatever penis is encountered, and there's the ability, if a woman can really open and soften and surrender, to allow enough space for like a huge cock. But that's actually not the natural resting place. Most women, and this changes anatomically based on the individual, but most women's vaginal canal is actually smaller than the average penis. It will adjust to create space for someone bigger, but its natural resting place is actually like able to work with a smaller size penis. For men, even if your length isn't sufficient to really stimulate the cervix, there's a vacuum and suction effect that can take place with skillful loving and when you understand what you're doing to actually be able to create a vacuum and create a seal when you're inside the woman. And then it's actually the gentle pulling out of the penis with that seal created at the vaginal entrance that creates a suction, and that suction pulls down on the cervix, and it stimulates and creates pressure inside the entire vaginal canal.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can create that seal, which is just a matter of alignment and technique, you can create stimulation inside the entire vaginal canal, including the cervix. So that's, again, just another a little empowering piece where it's like it really is about how we're using what we have and understanding anatomy, understanding technique, understanding the female body and also our body, and how to bring those together in a really powerful way.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, man. I love hearing the deep dive on some of those dynamics and, how the female body is so adaptive to the man she's with. And I'd love to speak to, some of the ways we can understand our body as well. And this is where we can get into, the ways that we actually can increase our erection size and quality. And that's really what
Mm-hmm.
we can control. We can't control what we were born with, but we can control all of the dynamics that are correlated to our erections and the quality of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest one, that I would like to speak to first of all is just, erections are all related to blood flow, the quality of erections. So the more that we can find a release in the pelvic floor of tension, which can involve pelvic floor opening exercises, that will increase blood flow. But also, so much of this is so psychosomatic. Of course, our breath, being able to release the tension that's in our minds, maybe even the pressure performance, even the stories of your penis size and trying to force it to be bigger. That was a lot of my past programming, and actually just practice deep breathing and deep opening of the vasculature within the body. This is right out the gate, like the biggest thing. If you're carrying tension in your mind, it's going to be expressed in your body. And when your body is tense, and especially when your pelvic floor is tense and the air is around your cock, you're going to be restricting blood flow, which is going to decrease your size and your erection quality. So that's one of the biggest ones, and one of the easiest ones we can do is just practice getting out of the mind and into the body, releasing the judgments, releasing the programs that my cock isn't enough, having the performance anxiety and some of this stuff. And I know we've covered a lot of this in other podcasts, and we cover a lot of this in our training program. So that in and of itself is its own deep dive, like moving beyond performance. But I want to just start by naming that the biggest thing for you to do is actually find more opening, find more vascular expansion, be breathing
Mm-hmm.
deeper in sex, and finding the ways to release the tension in your mind, the tension in your body, and just stay in your body. And of course, this sounds so much easier said than done, but this is ultimately what the practices are for. We
Mm-hmm.
can tell you this on a podcast right now, and you can say, okay, well, just relax. Like, okay, I just stay in my body. Okay, just allow, my body to do its thing without me staying in the head or forcing anything. And oftentimes the programs are so strong for us being stuck in our heads or us trying to force and control these things that even though we know what to do, it won't actually happen. Like, it's difficult to change that program. And so that's why we have our training programs. That's why we have brotherhood. That's why you have support. Because without daily practice of a lot of these different tools, you can't rewire these neural pathways. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like you fix it in your mind. Um, so, yeah, just wanted to mention that out the gate. Just releasing performance, releasing tension is really key to all of this.
Yeah, so there's the muscular tension, the ability to relax, and the nervous system is very tied into that. Excuse me. Our ability to relax and open is directly related to our ability to regulate our nervous system, to calm ourselves down, to not get caught up in the head and go into those stress patterns. And so I look at erection quality largely as a product of our nervous system health and our physiological health as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about the physiological side now. You mentioned blood flow and circulation. And I imagine most of us understand that, yeah, an erection is the result of engorgement with blood. And so what can we do to encourage and promote that engorgement? It's about opening up our vasculature, increasing circulation. And what you were speaking to, Ben, about pelvic floor tension being an inhibitory factor for circulation into our sex center, that's huge. And so there's that element of getting out of our own way, allowing our body to relax, to get out of its own way and stop blocking that energy and that blood from filling us. And then also we can look at the physiological side of our aerobic health, our cardiovascular system. Like, what are we doing outside of sex to promote a healthy, strong, able body? And I think, this is something that I really picked up from my partner, who's a naturopathic doctor, and she's passionate about helping people, and she's really passionate about sex, sexuality, and intimacy. And one of her primary intentions in helping people become their most vital self is her understanding that our sex, our sexual health, our quality of intimacy and sex is a direct result of our quality of overall health and vitality. So, and I, I like to think about it as like, as within, so without, as above, so below, as above, so below. If
Mhm.
if our general overall body is in an unhealthy, less than vital state, then our sex center is going to represent that as well. And so just doing simple things like cleaning up our diet, getting into zone 2, like cardio training, increasing our VO2 max, increasing our heart rate recovery, decreasing our resting heart rate, which is going to, improve our nervous system health and our cardiovascular health. Just really looking at where are there potential gaps in my overall vitality, and what is my sexual vitality showing me that
Mhm.
I could actually focus on outside of that. So looking at the big picture,
Mhm.
health. And then also, I know you also wanted to share some tools and techniques for men, specifically working with our cocks, ways that we can bring stimulation, bring blood flow, bring more health to our tissues. And so we talk about that in our course, and love to just share a couple practices that we can do with ourselves, for ourselves, on a daily basis to help increase that blood flow and quality of erection. So I'll name the, like, jelqing is something that many men might have heard the term of before. Jelqing, it's with a J, and it's kind of like a milking motion of our cock. So when we're soft or just, semi-flaccid, we can squeeze our cock at the base and push that, and we're basically like creating this pressure and moving that blood flow through the vasculature of our cock. And we don't want to do this, too hard.
Yeah,
Definitely
do
if
it
you're
at your own
experiencing,
risk.
yeah, if you're experiencing pain, you're probably doing too much. But
Mhm.
the intention is to create some pressure, and we're like pushing that blood through the vasculature in our cock, and it's going to help to promote blood flow in that area. It's going to help to increase the vasculature. And this is something that we can do daily. It can feel good. It can be like an easy, simple practice to do that helps to increase that blood flow. And then another one I wanted to speak to is stretching. So there's actually a significant portion of our penis is inside the body. So the erectile tissues of our cock go inside our body, and there's, maybe it's like about a third of our cock is actually like inside the body. And over time, especially as we age, there's a suspensory ligament that goes from our pubic bone to the tissues of our penis, and that suspensory ligament will tighten up and shorten over time as we age, and that's going to start to draw our penis inside the body. And so gently, again, just gently tugging and creating a little stretching motion, cupping our cock at the base and just gently tugging it downwards and upwards and side to side, and breathing into that again, not going past any points of pain. And do this at your own risk. We're not health professionals.
But these are
No,
also
no
ancient
advice.
Taoist practices too. Yeah,
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Just be gentle on yourself, but consistent practice with that is also going to help to gently lengthen that suspensory ligament and allow
Mhm.
more of our penis to be outside the body. And we
Mhm.
can actually tangibly add a little bit of length using that stretching technique. And then the jelking technique is more about increasing our erection quality. And with that, we can increase girth a
Mhm.
little bit, and it can feel like, it can actually feel like a significant improvement. I know I've experienced that, Ben. I know you've spoken to gains that you've noticed in yourself. So physiologically, there's a lot that we can do, increasing just looking at our overall health and vitality, looking at specific practices that are going to target our lingam, as we actually prefer to refer to the cock or penis as the lingam. That's the Sanskrit word for the male sex organ. And then really looking at the skillful aspect of loving. And I know we're coming up to the end of our time here.
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to just sprinkle in one last piece and then turn it over to you. I really want to reiterate this point around utilizing our tongue and our hands. If you're out there and you're listening and you're like, man, like I hear you guys, but fucking, I got a shitty hand dealt to me and I just have hardly anything to work with and I'm still feeling really discouraged. I want to just like paint a little picture for you. You're with a partner and you're getting intimate and you go down on her and you go down on her as a masterful oral lover and you make her feel so safe and so held and so appreciated, and you're ravishing her with your tongue and your hands and you're listening to her body and following her cues and orchestrating this beautiful orgasm for her, and she climaxes and she has one of the best orgasms she's had in a long time or maybe ever, and you haven't even entered her with your cock, and she's there in the afterglow of this orgasm like, holy shit, who is this guy? He just rocked my world, and like we haven't even had penetrative sex yet. And then you climb your way back up and enter her, and she's already fully satisfied. She's already just tingling with bliss and pleasure. No matter what you do in that actual penetrative aspect of sex, what do you think she's going to wake up feeling the next day? What do you think she's going to tell her friends? What do you think she's going to think about engaging with you sexually again? She's going to remember, holy cow, that guy rocked my world. And the receptivity of her body to penetration after already having an orgasm, your cock is going to feel way better already. It's going to feel like more than you might think it is. It's going to feel like such a welcome, inviting presence for her after you've already brought her to that state of orgasmic bliss. And that's within anyone's power.
Mhm.
So, if nothing else, just take that away and know that that's available to all of us, regardless of what we were endowed with, down there.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're interested in really stepping into that level of mastery, and having the tools and the support and the brotherhood to become that, we're here for you. Ultimately, that's what all of our training programs are here for. Everything that Hawks is describing is, different elements of what are in the men's sexual mastery training. You can learn a lot of the stuff. You can buy the books. You can spend, the next decade researching on your own, and spending a long time perusing the internet and everywhere else, even asking ChatGPT. But at the end of the day, like there's something quantum about being in brotherhood and being supported. And we just have our own distillation of all the information that, is our combined experience over these years to bring this to the mainstream as holistic sex ed so that you can reach that point as soon as possible. So if that resonates with you, if you're interested in jumping into a training program, check us out at menssexualmastery.com. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And remember, it's not the size, it's what you do with it. It's your ability to be a master of pleasure more than penetration. And yeah, this work is an inside-out job, as we always say. So with that, we'll sign off. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Send a big love.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks for tuning in.